Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirits Saga video. And today we're going to be talking about the top 16 archetypes from the Glasgow Grand Open that happened just this past weekend. You know, a little late, but better than ever because there's just been a lot going on. And you would not believe that there was a Luster deck in 9th place and a Nova deck in 10th. And we were so close to having a spicy top 8. But of course, we did see a lot of Axebiter. We did see a lot of Rex, which are kind of just the two Goliaths of this format. But there were some other interesting lists, at least within the top 16, once we kind of expanded the range of it. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So of course, up first, we have the champion, Alex Blandon, continuing to win at events in everywhere except North America. So he's just kind of continuing his world tour, as it were, before he eventually wins one in North America, I'm sure. But we do see Pterosaur still taking the top spot. Parva due to power, Parva due to consistency in red, but then also the notable difference here is the 4 Arcana Jokers main deck, which is just so important for the Axebiter meta that we're dealing with, right? Red does have a lot of that really early aggression that you can lean into, Gigano being a very early, strong play that you can do, but then thanks to Volcanic Canyon, thanks to the Star Blessed Draw giving you extra draw power, you can eventually find those Arcana Jokers to get the last bit of chip damage, and you'll even see the 2 Thorn Prison in the sideboard just to further clear the way for your early aggression. So very heavily teched against the Axebiter matchup. And again, one of the things that because of Red's filtering and consistency, really only Red can get away with this. Of course, you know, if you're playing yellow, you're going to have it main deck anyways because our Arcana Joker is just so good right now, but other decks do struggle to have the same consistency as Red unless you have another draw engine put in, but ultimately Red is just doing Red things, right, at the end of the day. But otherwise, you know, we do see the 2 Nexus Hazard, just respecting the Nexus heavy format, how important it is. Volcanic Break got cut down to 2, but still a very good card. Really just all in on those, going up to 8 Nexus again. And there was, you know, 6 for a little bit, but all in all, very small changes, but generally speaking, the same list that we've seen from the set 1 meta now being, you know, slightly tweaked for set 2. And then, of course, with set 3 with Floodstream, whew, right? This list gets hit a lot. So we'll see how the Gigano Rex or Pterosaur players adapt into set 3. But, you know, will the reign of Gigano Rex finally end? Or will they find themselves in more of a mid-range format where they're still very good, right? There are some mid-range threats they could lean into if they wanted to, lowering the effectiveness of Floodstream. But that is a wait and remains to be seen, right? So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Moving on, we have the second place with the Axebiter list. I do like this one because it has the Turbo Rex as someone who had to play against this in Monroeville. Turbo Rex does some work, but generally speaking, we are still on the, you know, Machine Beast style of control deck. It is one that we're expecting to see a lot more of with set 3 because generally at the end of the day, remove Axebiter, remove Depths, you still have some very good cards in white that can just run away with the game, right? Elephant is still very good. A turn 2 Elephant is still very, very scary in a lot of matchups. So, and then of course we have Aegis from set 2, which is now giving us a life, bouncing some stuff, drawing us a card. There's a lot of good stuff that they were able to pick up. And of course, depending on where the X-Rare lands for set 3, I would not be surprised as if even 2 cards get hit from this list, like 2, you know, arguably major meta players, right, get hit. I'm quite positive that white control is still going to be in a very good spot just because of how much they picked up from set 2. And of course, they can pretty easily transition into splashing another color to fill some of those gaps. So not going anywhere. If you're a white control enthusiast, I'm sure this is still going to be perfectly fine, especially as we shift to a more mid-range and controlled meta with set 3. Again, because of Floodstream, right? White-blue might be a very real thing, all things considered. So definitely keep these 2 lists in mind, right? These are going to be kind of the 2 big players to see how they shift, right? Does Pterosaur completely fall off? Does it shift to a mid-range? Because again, at the end of the day, Red still has a lot of draw, a lot of consistency to bake into it. So going to a slightly slower big Red strategy could be perfectly fine. And then of course, with white, we have the Machine Beast Nexus, which is just insane. Obviously bad in multiples, but hey, now white has some on-color filtering if they really want to go that route with some of the set 3 spoilers that we've seen. So I would not be surprised if we see a very quick shift to the 4 of Machine Beast Nexus. Give me the Elks, give me the Elephants, give me the, well, Voltron, Aegis, whatever he, Mammoth, right? Bring it all together, and I'm sure we still have a very playable list. But these 2, We've seen them time and time again. They are the Goliaths of the format, as I mentioned, so not too much to talk about in these lists as well. The last thing I'm going to mention is the Flame Breath in the sideboard. Really love to see the respect for the Arcana Jokers, right? Because it is a when summon. Flame Breath is going to be able to kill it before they get to attack with it. And that's a card I don't think anyone would have expected us to sideboard in set 2 meta, but here we are. Sideboard your Flame Breaths. It's a really good card, it turns out. Moving on from there, we have Nemesis. Again, I am horribly biased. I love the Shadow archetypes. I love Nemesis. Any Nemesis deck, I'm already going to, rate it higher. But this is just the purple good stuff that we've seen time and time again. With set 2, we got the Lamrack, we got the Impaler Forest, which just got even more value, right? Rotting Swamp draws us a bunch of cards. This is a deck that, Depths was only a 3 of here, but take Depths out, you don't care, right? You are purple. You have a ton of draw stuff. Nemesis is just a great value enabler, and with Lamrack, really gets pushed up to 11. So this archetype really gained the most out of set 2, it felt like, at least within purple itself, because Nemesis can just do so much work now, and I really can't wait to see how these lists evolve into set 3 when you are able to put these very, very strong engines together. And of course, we do have some interesting splashes. We still have the one of Leaf Wolf, we have a one of Cursed Dragon, one of Maduke, but we do have a lot of draw power, so we are, likely to dig through our deck and see them. And then, of course, the Thorn Prison, Dream Bomb, and what have you. What I really like, too, is the Castle in the sideboard. Again, being able to shut off the elephant plays. It is expensive, but as your opponent is wasting, or I shouldn't say wasting, but having to use, right, their burning forces on your depths or other key nexus, you just get to slide in that castle and go, well, sorry, your elephant's not doing anything now, and then you can freely attack with your Cursed Spirits. It's a nexus that it has a really weird, the level 1 effect that it's like somewhat situational because green really doesn't want to be all that defensive right now. But the level 2, just being able to shut off the when destroyed effects can be really strong, especially as we continue to see strong when destroyed effects spoiled in set 3 that definitely hold on to that card. Think about it as a possible sideboard option. I don't expect that we're ever going to really see it as a main deck option, but it is a very, very strong sideboard piece of tech that should be considered in a lot of decks going forward. But again, with the black lands and just a lot of good cards that purple, continues to get, and I'm sure they're going to get another good tournament pack promo with set 3 launch. I'm really curious to see where it goes. The one thing I will say about this list in particular, and obviously with Axebiter, maybe moving out of the format, I really loved the tournament promo Guinevere, which just lets you destroy a 7 or less that's exhausted. I just like it as like a one of that I've been teching in, and it's just been really good. But again, that's more of like purple has this very toolboxy feel to it almost, right? You have your Nemesis, you're drawing a bunch of cards, Nemesis being able to be a deadly balance, be a core removal, combos very well with Impaler Forest, right? It's just like a general good catch-all card, but then thanks to Impaler Forest, we're able to mill through our deck, look for important pieces, and then always have that like really spicy tech answer that we want. So if you haven't already, definitely make sure to try out one to two of the Guinevere, because I think it is a pretty spicy pickup in these style of lists. And then, of course, we got to talk about it. The 9th place, breaking my heart on Breakers here with Mike Lang. And I got to give them a special shout out because they got 9th in this event and 10th with Luster in the last event that they played in. So I really got to stress here that if you love an archetype, just go play it. Play it as your heart out of it, and make sure you know your matchups, because you will get rewarded for it. This is what Battle Spirits as a game is about. There is obviously, Axebiter and Rex, 2 big pillars of the format, but there are some other decks out there that you should very strongly consider and revisit, especially as we continue to get this new support. And the support that really kind of caught my eye, and I doubted for a minute, but then I really see how it comes online here, is the Secret Flower Garden. Getting your Shin and getting your Dual Eagle to 7k off one Nexus is extremely important for the red matchup and making sure that you're dodging those volcanic breaks. And of course, if they destroy it, you gain a life, right? Because of the yellow Nexus effect. That's okay, but really for just a cheap 1-core investment to get into both to 7k, always, it brings me back to, I think the devs want Luster to be its own standalone thing, but then they print this Nexus and it's like, okay, we're still going to just play the blessed stuff and then Luster at the top end, right? Especially with the new 6-drop Angel that we just got previewed in set 3, which is insane. It still brings us back to the same point, like, how are we surviving the early game? We talked about this a little bit on the Church of Penton podcast, so make sure to check that out. But, one thing that comes to mind is Crocodile, right? Yes, it technically has Blessed. Yes, it's a Fabled Beast, so you can draw off Phantasmal Paradise for it, but this is one of those ones that are like, I'm just going to go ahead and immediately side this guy out for the new 5-drop vanilla just because it hits better BP thresholds. And I would almost say that we want to bring back the Carbuncle just to have the early 4K blocker, right? So if we get another Bless, or if the Topaz Sanctuary is really good, right? That 3-drop is kind of nuts, right? If Topaz Sanctuary is playable and now we're getting a free Blessed unit that helps us find Topaz Sanctuary, which is also better for Michaela because it gets you like basically 2 yellow symbols on the board, that could just really be the big boost that Luster needed, because then you are solving some of that early game problem. You still have a now better, Blessed target, and then the rest of your support can still be the Fabled Beast, right? And Ryut, I know that's one that's going to catch a lot of people off guard, but spoiler, we hate Dream Bomb. If you haven't played Luster before, Dream Bomb is still one of your biggest enemies, so make sure you're holding that until a turn that you really want to pop off with Shin. And of course, it is a Fabled Beast. It's still drawing you a card, like that's fine. But then overall, I mean, this is a lot of what we've seen, right? We talked about the Exhaust Nexus into Burning Force combo time and time again, or just with Shin in general, because she restands herself and is allow you to attack again. Sometimes all you need is a Shin and an Exhaust Nexus, and you can clear the board because you're going to be able to get it back off the Luster, untap your Shin, go through combat, and then get to Exhaust Nexus again, which is even better with the new Spirit again in set 3. So overall, I really like this list. I think the numbers are overall pretty good. Again, the only one that really jumps out for me is Crocodile. That's one that I would maybe swap with something else. But overall, I really like this list. I definitely think it's one that is worth looking into, right? And then you have the Beldegors out of the sideboard to help against some aggressive matchups. You have Harpy Nest Palace, which has been a huge bonus for us in yellow against purple. And then you have Clavis in case the game is going to go long. And, well, Clavis can just attack, it turns out, and just kills everything. But, of course, getting back to those Exhaust Nexus, if you need to play a little bit more defensively, is really important. So, again, I super love this list. I'm going to be playing it for a Versus video sometime soon. Again, Mike Lang has just been the Luster guru out of Europe scene, right? Because they got 9th and then, or 10th and then now 9th. So clearly they're going to go to the European Pro Tour and, maybe just a little bit of copium, but I would love to see Luster make it into the top 8 again, because they have clearly just been refining, putting in the reps, and really just grinding it out with Luster. So huge shout out to Mike Lang in this one. Really wish you would have gotten there on Breakers, but a 9th place is still an amazing finish. And then the other one that we got to talk about, right, is the Nova list. And we talked about this one as well during a little bit about the podcast, but this one's super neat, right? So, like, it really gets me excited to try to build a red-white Nova list at some point now, because you have really good early game protection, right? We have the Flamefish, we have some ramp, we have some arc. You have the absolute insane end game. We have elephants, we have elks, we have Nova who's just going to heal us 5. In some world, if we need to, we have Maduke Enterprise combo. Sure. Like, you are just boss monsters the deck, right? And we talked about this with a earlier deck profile that we featured on the channel with just like the big red archetype with like throw in some worker Ant-Man. Maybe you keep up on the 4 of Emerald as well and just like get those cores early enabled. But in this list, if you find that early elephant and you're able to get the core ramp and then have a Nova come up behind it, right? Because you're drawing 3. A lot of the problems that we've seen with the Nova deck is that you're drawing and doing all this filtering. You do your big bang combo and you're feeling great. And then they answer your board and you cry, right? Like, Elephant helps out a lot with that. So I think this is definitely pushing the list in a more interesting and definitely the right direction. I could not play that many 8 drops to save my life. I would just cry every single time. But hey, Nova, right, if you think about it, is like half ramp, half control, because you're always going to heal back up to 5, then you got all those cores back, and then Nova can answer the board very well. Sure, that's a thing. That's definitely a thing. But this is one that I definitely like. I could see very heavily relying on you finding that Volcanic Canyon just so you can find the right pieces you need for the right matchup. But again, had a 5-2 record, very respectable. The, winning in away, as we like to say, from a top 8. And again, does have a lot of coverage in this style of deck that we have not seen in other Nova decks. So I think this definitely shifts the conversation where it's like, okay, we're no longer building all in Nova decks. We want to make sure that we have Nova to heal up, but now we have to respect the rest of the format and have a little bit more brewing to do in case of what matchups we expect to see. So again, huge shout out here. Clearly put in a lot of work and a lot of love into this list to have that 5-2 record. But I would imagine too, like if I was sitting across the table from this, depending on what you see game one, like, how do you even sideboard, right? Because Elephant and Elk is just going to kill you some games. And then you're like, no way of knowing that Nova is going to come down in game two. So I'm really curious to learn how many games went that way, where you see like one half of the top end and then you get to like hide it from your opponent from game two and game three, and then just completely blindside them after sideboarding, where they sideboard maybe differently if you would have played the Nova or if you would have shown the Enterprise. So another list that it's one of those things that really rewards the deck building, crafting, and brewing with it, that was really exciting to see make into the, again, this one was the 10th place list. Again, on breakers, could have snuck into top 8. And then the last one with Jara is the green aggro deck, or just green good stuff for 4Ks. And with a lot more people realizing that Elzamoth is just a really good, basically the X rare for this archetype in this set, but it is only just a rare. So this is one that I think a lot of people have been trying to how low to the ground do you go with green aggro, right? Because even the 4-drop vanilla with 3 reduction is just a really good attacker at 5K. We still have things like Scoop Owl, which can effectively just be Gale 1, or it can surprise save us if we really needed to. And then from there, it's just like the normal, hey, we have Thorn Prisons, we have Dream Bombs because we have to clear the way. But again, this is one of those things that if you get to see that Elzamoth and you get to just tap down your board, it basically says you now have to have Ice Shield or a Suppression every single turn from now until one of us dies, right? So Elzamoth just being really good at that. And of course, if we look to the meta overall, things like Durham Dyna do get a little bit more value because it just cuts the amount of answers they could have in half a lot of times. Now, arguably, if your board's wide enough, then Dream Bomb doesn't save you, so then it's like the same amount of answers. So there's a little bit of a give and take depending on which side of that you want to be on. But overall, I love Leaf Wolf. I love the Swift side of this. I love that Pinsir is able to just tap down sometimes a blocker and let your Worker Ant-Man swing again, right? A lot of times, for anyone that's played green, it really is just Worker Ant-Man tempo the body, right? As long as you're able to stick that Worker Ant-Man and swing with it right away, and then on the follow-up turns have things like Thorn Prison and Dream Bomb, you're going to win that game because you're keeping the core efficiency while being more proactive in progressing your board, where now suddenly your opponent is always on the back foot, right? Like, maybe just not enough people have been playing green, because admittedly green wasn't like the top deck in set 2 by any means, but it really feels unfair, right? Like, you're breaking the catch-up mechanic of that game, and by a single 3-drop that you get to play early. Now, I'm not calling it OP, I'm not calling it like game-breaking busted, but I think a lot of these green lists, if they think about what their path to victory is going to look like early on, 10 out of 10 times, it's going to come back to Worker Ant-Man and how much value you were able to get out of it because you're keeping the core game at parity as you're ramping every single turn. Or in some cases, your opponent has to chump block with like a 2K because Worker Ant-Man's a 4K for some reason, right? And then you're getting ahead on the resource game while staying at 5 life a lot of times, right? So I do think that Worker Ant-Man, again, working overtime belongs in even way more lists that he saw in set 2. And we did see, the first look at green spoilers today, where we got an insane 10 drop for green that I'm excited to see where that goes. But again, it all comes back to Worker Ant-Man really being the MVP of making it all happen. And I cannot wait to see what the X rares for green look like in this set. And then of course, in the sideboard, Suppression respecting the aggro, we have some Axebiter in case the game's got to stall a little bit. And then only a 1 of Joker. I definitely expect that there should have been more Joker in the sideboard just to respect the Axebiter matchup. But again, that's one of the things I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what their meta is looking like, how many Axebiters you expect to face. But as someone who played this in Monroeville, played against 4 Axebiters, 3 Joker, like I should have played 4 Jokers in my sideboard, if I'm being honest. Like, that's just how important it is in the current meta. But again, this list is slightly faster than the one that I played by comparison. So sometimes you just kill them before it matters. But with that, that is the top 16 archetype breakdown. Of course, all these lists are available on Eggman's website if you want to go check them out there. But otherwise, of course, we have Melbourne this weekend and then Chile after that. And then maybe a ban list, right? Well, we have to wait until early October to hear back from the devs on what they're going to do with the format, if anything. But ultimately, it does look like Axebiter and Gigano continue to be the absolute nightmares of the format. So it would not be shocking at all if Bondi does something to, mix up a little bit because, 2 things. 1, format health. If you look at top 32 lists, it's a lot of depths, anti-depths, or Axebiter. And then going beyond that, like, you want to make sure that set 3 does something to the meta. Floodstream is already really great, don't get me wrong. But there is also the overall meta shakeup standpoint of it, where it's like you want to see these other decks have more of the spotlight, and that would definitely be a way to do it. So who knows? I have no idea what to expect at this point. All I know is we don't have to deal with the One Piece problem where red is still the best deck 4 sets later, and like, if One Piece was any other IP, it would be struggling just because of how bad the format health is. So there's something certainly to be said about looking at what One Piece was suffering really from their meta and seeing that Battle Spirits is going in the same way and being like, you know what, maybe let's not have Battle Spirits go the same way because we don't have an IP, right? To just have people still go to these events despite having one of a really bad format, all things considered. But again, outside looking in, won't spend too much time on that. But I know people who have been playing One Piece are very, very tired of how good red has been for so long and just continues to dominate and, you know, be really good. But with that, that is, again, the top 16 breakdown. A lot more to come. Yes, we are going to be recording some versus videos soon. Recording one later today, but of course, with like editing, timing, and work, how work has just been insane these past 2 weeks with some projects I've been working on. Hopefully next week, but definitely look forward to it. So with that, my friends, have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.